Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of Blokes with Beards talking business. Last week we done quite well. We thought we're all quite chuffed with ourselves, and we done fairly well. We'll jump into a few questions. We've got some pre-prepared questions, and also obviously we hope that people will get involved and ask us some questions here. I'm not seeing any coming through as of yet, so come on, guys, let's get busy. Like last week, I'm doing quick introductions. You know me, I'm Alan Broome, Acumenica. We've got Chris from Ajax or Ajax.
Whatever tickles your pickle.
Right, we'll go with Ajax today. We'll go Dutch today. Ajax, and Mark Maclean. He's the lawyer from Straight Line Legal, who is going to share and show the disclaimer again, just so that you all know that we're not actually giving you advice. We're just being nice and friendly. Go for it, Mark.
Thanks, Alan. Hi, everyone, again. This week we've upgraded and we've got it all in writing, so I don't have to read it out awkwardly. So I'm going to try and share my screen now and see if this works. Can everyone see that? That looks good to me.
You're in.
So we'll just leave that up for a minute while everyone reads it, or maybe there's no one here, but hopefully there is someone to read it.
And I hope we're not singing an empty church here, preaching in an empty church. Maybe we thought that it was quite a success last week, but everybody else it was a load of old rubbish and didn't bother coming.
It's possible.
Fingers crossed that's not what's happened,
Yeah. My mum told me we're all really good boys, so I think we're fine.
Oh well, that's excellent. So
thanks, Chris's mum.
So we've got a few. It seems like we've got a few people on stream, but nobody's asking any questions. So I've got one. A couple that came in earlier on, so bear with me just to see if I can find it. First one's for, it doesn't say whether it's for Mark or Chris, so let me just check what it says. It says, "Hi, can you bring in milk and coffee on your way home, please?" That's for Laura. Does that help any of you? I don't know that one.
I don't know if it helps or hinders, because both our wives are called Laura. So.
All right, okay. Oh, well. Well, both of you go and get milk and coffee on the way home, just to be on the safe side.
Unless she's messaging you, in which case we're in big trouble.
Well, we've got a problem right enough, right? Right, so let's actually get to some business questions. I had one. Jason, who is a client of mine, runs a kind of plumbing contractor's business. He's asked me the question, but he's not been able to come online to do it, so I'm going to ask it on his behalf. And the question was, I've been asked to sponsor my local amateur side to buy their match kits. Can I do this? Now, presumably that's a football team. It doesn't really matter what's football team, rugby team, or what have you. The same rules apply. Now, there's two questions that come into play here: is can you do it, and can you get the tax relief on it? Generally speaking, you can, but like with everything with HMRC, there's a few kind of gotchas that you've got to watch out for. The big one is if you've got a connection to the team or the side or the club or whatever it is. So if you're a member of the club or you're a supporter of the club or your son or daughter plays for the side, HMRC will look at it and let's see if we can pass this, if this expense passes a wholly and exclusively test. In other words, is it a business expense? So while it probably is a business expense, if you've got a family member or somebody else, somebody involved, in a connected person involved in the club, what we kind of suggest that you do is you ask yourself, if you weren't a supporter of the club or if your kid didn't play for the team, would you still sponsor them? If the answer to that question is no, then clearly the reason isn't a business. It's no business motivated. So we would then suggest that you might not get the tax relief on it. But if you say aye, yes, sorry, we would still sponsor it. Then there's further questions you need to ask along the lines of: is there a commercial benefit to the team, to the business? So are you going to get any business out of it? Are you going to be better placed in the community to get business in the future, or questions like that? Was there a business decision-making process involved in it? So did you look at other teams? Did you look at other clubs to sponsor? Did you evaluate the difference between this team and that team? So, you know, to see if it was a business reason, if it was for business purposes, then you wouldn't only sponsor the team that you're involved in. You would sponsor the one that gives you the best business outcomes. So again, be careful with that. And obviously, you've got to get the paperwork right. So make sure there's an invoice, a sponsorship agreement, and so on and so forth. But beyond that, it's, I suppose, like most things, there's really common sense involved. And if you apply the common sense rules and you look at the whole and exclusively rule and be honest with yourself, then you'll come to your own answer. So I hope that makes sense to Jason, who's not here. So I'll probably need to email him that anyway. Still no questions coming in, guys. Come on.
It's me thinking that was a dead easy one. It's going to take seconds, and it kind of justifies the whole point of doing all of this, because that's a sort of question that not really a Google one, is it?
Well, that's it. That's it.
Yeah, that's a great question, that, and good answer. There's not really much I can add to that from a legal perspective. So we've got Raphael, hi. Ashley, hi. LinkedIn user, generic LinkedIn user, also, hey. Do any hey. Do any of you guys have questions? Otherwise, it's just going to be very awkward for the next 30-odd minutes.
Knowing Ashley as I do, he's obviously got a question. He's no one to remain silent for long. So here's a question that we get asked quite a lot. I bet you guys get asked quite a lot as well. And it was one that Chris raised earlier on. What is the biggest mistake you've seen your businesses make in their early years? I think we can all have an input into that question, but I answered the last one, so somebody else put their hand up and go for it with this one. Chris, what do you reckon?
Oh, I think from my point of view, from a financial planning side, the thing that almost no new businesses think of, especially when you've left the bosom of corporate world to go and do your own thing, you now don't have things like sick pay to fall back on. If you can't do what you're going to do, in a lot of cases, you are the business. And people just don't think about having their income protected, having insurance that is basically going to be their sick pay. And I wouldn't say that 9 out of 10 all businesses, to be honest, but newer ones in particular that I come across, that would be absolutely skin buggered if they couldn't work for 6 months, 12 months or longer, don't have that in place, and they really, really should be thinking about it. I think that's the biggest one from my point of view that scares the bejesus out of me when I see people haven't even thought about it.
So like critical illness cover and so forth, that kind of thing.
Critical illness cover, I'm more thinking income protection.
Right.
So that literally would do what sick pay would do if you had an employer. So if you can't work, not just you've been diagnosed with some terrible illness, more if you've put your back out and it's going to be a long time, you've had an operation, or mental health, it could be anything that just stops you doing your job but doesn't kill you. Because most people have got life cover. If they're dead, they're fine quite often. But it's the if you're not dead, you just can't work, that a lot of people are knackered. So income protection would be the biggie for me. And well, if you're running a limited company, as an example, great example for business owners, there's types of income protection you can get where you actually get potentially get corporation tax relief on the premiums that you pay. So it doesn't necessarily cost the full whack that it looks like it costs.
It feels like one of those things that, I mean, I think this is probably one that will appear when Mark goes to tell us about what his biggest errors or the mistakes he sees most often, same with myself, is it's about putting things on a pile and saying we'll deal with that later. So if that's income protection or critical illness or anything like that, I've not got time to deal with that, we'll deal with that later. I always find that that's probably the same in terms of we try to encourage people to, as soon as possible, get a kind of tax planning process in place. Talk about how you remunerate yourself, your remuneration strategy, get that in place, because oftentimes it'll just be kind of put on the pile to like to be dealt with, and a month down the line it's still not dealt with, then another month down the line it's still not dealt with, and then you get into a position where perhaps the tax year's changed, or you've ticked over VAT thresholds and what have you, and you've not made you've not made the right decisions at the right time, so it's a big problem. Mark, I'm sure you'll find the same things in terms of what you see with your clients, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, mine's quite a simple one and quite self-serving, possibly, but my biggest advice is, if you're starting a business, don't blag it. And from the legal side of things, you know, go and get legal advice if you think you need it. There are so many, you know, what I would say, there are known unknowns and there are unknown unknowns. And the unknown unknowns are the worst. You just don't know what you don't know, right? And, you know, there's all sorts of minefields for business owners, particularly if you've got a limited company. You've got directors' duties, and there's all sorts of things that you have to do as a limited company that you just simply might not know. So I think my biggest advice, and the thing that I suppose I see so many things go wrong that it's hard to pinpoint one. So the biggest advice I could give is, don't blag it and get some advice from the outset. Get a guide, you know, get a roadmap as to what are the key things you need to do in terms of compliance, in terms of getting your contracts straight, in terms of your business structure, the insurance you need, GDPR compliance, you know, that's a big one these days. And, you know, so it's really just about knowing what you need to do from the start.
Yeah, I think businesses, people have set up a business whether they're aware of the legal aspects and tax aspects and financial planning aspects. Right or wrong, or they look at these as being a wee bit kind of on the dull pile, you know, the pile of stuff that isn't really sexy and worth dealing with. So they'll ignore that and they'll concentrate on their marketing and getting business and what have you, which is also fine, but worth considering also that when you're doing marketing, part of marketing is obviously pricing, and getting a wee bit of professional help on the pricing is important as well, to make sure that you're not working for, well, nothing a lot of the time, and much less than you kind of anticipated, you know. So I think it's important. I mean, is it too simple to say is just seek advice for somebody that knows what they're talking about early doors? I mean, I think that's fairly good sort of catch-all advice, isn't it?
Pretty. So how much time do you guys reckon you spend trying to unwind situations where people have caused themselves a bit of a mess because they didn't do this stuff from day one? I don't know. I would rather not think about that, to be honest with you. But I would say if we're retained by a client before the business kicks off, if you know what I mean, before they've decided on it's a limited company or a sole tradership or a partnership, or it's going to be VAT registered, or this is what we're going to do. If they get in touch with us early, then there's next to nothing to be unpicking, obviously, because we're there early. But if they come to us 3 months down the line, a lot of the time it's quite easy to unwind. But beyond 3 months, it just takes forever, you know, and it's difficult because, I don't know about you guys, but the way we like to set up our billing and what have you is a monthly arrangement, so people pay us a fee. So a lot of the work would be front ended. We can't really charge any like back fees because that's not part of your MO. So it does mean it can be quite challenging to begin with. But I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say. It can be time consuming, that's for sure, and frustrating. So listen, we've got a question that's came in from Craig Kelly. Thank you, Craig. It's for you again, Chris. Sorry, you're getting hit today. You deal with people in the creative industries. What kind of strategies do you use when most of their assets are either in their minds and are hard to protect? Good question. I think really that refers back to what we talked about before, about having the right insurances in place, especially with creatives. And I guess it kind of has parallels for any sort of professional services where you are the product. The amount of times there's a guy I sat with the other week and sort of said to him, what do you think he's an IT contractor, what do you think your biggest asset is? He's looking, he's like, oh, my house is, like 300 odd grand, and I've got this much in the bank. I was like, no. When you look at, because his wife didn't really earn much, he was the main breadwinner. He was at about 100 grand a year he was earning. The guy was about 35. So we had 30 odd years to go. His ability to go to work, use his brain to keep doing the things that he's doing was his biggest asset by far. It's, like, it was about 3 million quid when we worked it out, what he's going to earn from now till then. And if he couldn't work, he's lost all of that. So I think the same applies for creatives and anyone who sells themselves. Is just having that worst case scenario. It's all right when you're, maybe a few years away from retirement and you've already built up all your pots and you're in a position where if you couldn't work, you probably could, maybe make it work. But if you're at the start of that journey, insurance has got to plug the gap until you've got the war chest that you need.
Okay. So I'm going to, you're not going to love me, but here's another question for you exclusively, Chris. My friends and family have had bad experiences with pensions. Are they actually worth bothering with? I hear this quite a lot. I mean, part of our tax planning process is we ask about pensions, and a lot of people say, "Oh, they're useless. They didn't make money. It'd be better having them in a bit better staying in cash," sort of thing. I mean, aside from the obvious tax benefits for us, it's an easy sell, So even if it's a dog, you're still making money on it because of the tax relief. But I mean, I'm sure you can add a wee bit more to it than just the tax relief.
Yeah, well, you've got to be saving somewhere for the future. You've got to be building a pot. Now, whether you want to invest in property, you want to invest in stocks and shares or whatever, it's got to be working for the future. And you're right, the tax relief is probably the biggest reason that anyone's going to look at pensions. But I think to write pensions off, it's a bit like saying, I don't like cars because I had a shit one once. It's not the car per se, it's what is the engine under the bonnet that's making it go. And for years and years, people had pensions and their employer did everything for them. You just sat back and you did nothing. They did it all. Obviously, the government loves changing the rules, so people have got a little bit of a trust issue, I think, with pensions, especially if you're 15, 20 years away. But if you've got, I'm not just saying it because it's my bread and butter, but if you've got pensions that are sitting there that you just went into because it's what your employer was offering, you could be in just whatever the bog standard crappy funds are that are just plodding along. And there's a reason why you're looking at them going, well, it's a bit crap because it doesn't do anything. Might be because it's got the wrong engine driving the car. That's where somebody like me or any financial advisor is going to sit down and look at it and go, right, well, could we be, fine tuning this, tweaking it so that it is going to drive you where you want to go? I'm sticking with that analogy. So it's impossible to say pensions are crap. I think governments change their mind, which causes issues. But for anyone who's sort of 5-10 years away from retirement, to not look at pensions with, wide eyes and a little smile on their face as to the best way to get them where they want to be, you'd be missing out on something massive there. I think that's my 2 pence.
Would you say, another question that we get asked quite a lot, if you run a company and you have building up a wee bit in reserve and cash, would you say that your best bet, again, I mean, it really involves a wee bit of cash flow management prior to that, but would you say, I suppose depending on the age of the business operator as well, would you say get that into pension subject to your limits and stuff? Or is that maybe too simplistic?
I think you're right. There's the old "it depends" at the start of pretty much every sentence that leaves any of our mouths, right? But if you are running a business where you might need that cash in the future, better to invest it within the business somewhere than hive it all out into pensions where it can't be touched for a good few years. But because sitting on cash, most of us can agree that sitting on cash in the bank doing nothing for possibly 10 or 15 years is not really going to be a good idea, because inflation, whatever it is, it's always more than whatever the rates are at the bank. So you're losing money that way. But if you don't have a need for that money in the business, you're just thinking about, well, how do I create a future for me and my family? Then pensions are massive. If you're potentially saving corporation tax and not having to pay income tax, divvy tax when you whip it out, you can have the lot growing tax efficiently for the future. And then when you've not got the income that you need to take out to live on day to day coming in, and you've got those, basic rate and personal allowances available in retirement, then take it out then and pay probably less than half the tax you would have if you're just whipping it out of the business now for the sake of it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm a big fan of pensions.
You would be, to be fair.
Naturally.
We like to, we a lot of the time we will keep as much, well, not as much as possible, but we'll keep a fair sum of money in the business as well, so that when retirement does come, we can be tax efficient and withdrawing it as well. So a lot of people will make the mistake of pulling out every penny they can and paying tax on it immediately. But we always kind of advocate, if you don't really need it, and when I say need it, I don't mean like sort of so that you can live on a subsistence level. I don't mean that. I mean, if maintain your lifestyle that you want to maintain, but beyond that, there's little mileage in taking any more out of the business because you're going to be taxed on it immediately. Allow the business to build up funds, and then when we retire, we then look at liquidation, business asset disposal reliefs. You pay 10% on it as long as you do it correctly, rather than 37% or what have you. So that's obviously worth considering as well. But I think even taking that into account, I think if you max out your pension first before you do that, it certainly makes a wee bit of sense.
I think just to wrap that up, there's more niche situations that people don't always think about. Like if you've got cash sat in the business and maybe you're renting the business premises, and you think, well, do you know what? We're using this. We've got some trade. It's a factory. We're always going to have it. And you've got old pensions sitting around. I've known a few people gather up their smaller pots, use some of the cash that's in the business to get it in the pension effectively, and then end up buying their own premises via pensions and renting it back to their own pensions. So it's a lot more niche stuff, but there's a lot of stuff you can do with that cash. Rather leaving it sitting there is definitely a bad idea. Mm-hmm. That's one thing we can definitely say.
Aye. No, I would suggest keeping it in the business, but investing it within the business, I suppose, would be more important. And then property and what have you is always. No, it's not always a good bet, but it's mostly a good bet. Do you see anything in keeping money in the business, Mark, that can present a kind of legal challenge in respect of, I don't know, if you were closing the business down, for example? I mean, we would probably advocate a liquidation process if the funds are above a certain level. Do you experience anything that's ever challenged in that respect, or is there anything that we need to be, our audience needs to be aware of in that respect?
From a legal perspective, not so much. I would say that I'm not an insolvency practitioner, and that that's a dark art in and of itself, as I always say. So maybe an insolvency practitioner would have something useful and helpful to say on that point, but generally I don't tend to see an issue in what you guys have suggested, or what you've suggested there, Alan, with keeping the money in the business.
Cool. So Raphael has asked again, Chris, sorry, you're getting it again. Raphael has asked, going back to protection, what is more expensive, critical illness or income protection, and how are they calculated?
Well, the very simple answer is the one that's the most expensive is the one that you're most likely to need, because the insurance company wants its pound of flesh.
Aye.
You'll typically find that critical illness, for a lump sum, if you get a critical illness, let's just make up some figures here. If you were of an age where it would cost you, I don't know, maybe 80 quid a month to protect 100 grand, well, 80 grand a year of income, it might cost you 80 quid a month to get a couple of 100 grand of critical illness. So on the face of it, they look similar, but income protection, potentially that could be paying out for 20, 30 years. So the actual amount that you could get's enormous. But the insurance company's looking at that going, well, the odds of you getting that illness for that long term, they're a lot less than you just, getting cancer. And we've got to pay out 200 grand right on day one. So personally, I like to go along the lines of making sure income protection is the top of the priority. And then next on the pile would probably be, if you're not here, so life cover, and then critical illness if you've still got some budget left, because you can try and cover everything and it can run away with you how much you end up spending. But if you've got a bit of budget left, critical illness can just soften the blow of whatever's going on at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I think
right.
that kind of answers that.
Mm-hmm. Chris, have another drink, because the next question's also going to be directed at you. Really sorry, Mark. You could probably just you could probably just nip away and get your lunch if you want. I mean, nobody seems to be interested in you or I. But I'm in.
Look, before you jump in there, look, Sean McNally said, "What's the topic?" It was a little while back, to be fair, looking at the timestamp.
Yes.
Anything, especially accounting or legal stuff.
Yeah, legal stuff. No, I mean, it's fine. Do ask Chris all the questions you want. That's absolutely fine. But I saw this before, and I tried to respond. By the way, if you're still there, Sean, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right because you've got an accent on the A. But I've just checked back, and your comments have disappeared from the post. So I tried to respond. So I don't know whether you're still there, but hopefully you are.
I think this. There must be something about these posts that I think last week somebody mentioned that posts kept dropping off as well. So I wonder if people leave the feed if their posts disappear as well. So
maybe.
That probably means
why would anyone ever want to leave you?
It probably means that he's not here, so we can talk about him behind his back if everybody knows him. Right, so hopefully this is the last pension question. Barry Boyle, a good client of mine up in Aberdeen, he's one of these, I'm going to call them maniacs that dangles for ropes on a offshore platform. And just nuts, but he's asking, would you recommend a SSAS pension? Apologies if you mentioned that already. So you again.
It very much depends what you're trying to achieve with it. That type of an SaaS or a SaaS, as we like to call them,
mm-hmm.
has a lot of really great functionality. If you're running your own business, you maybe need to raise some finance for your business and you want to use your pension funds to help do that because you can lend to your business from the SaaS. Mm-hmm. You could buy property. So you could buy your business, you can't buy residential property, but you could buy business property through the SaaS, yours or someone else's, rent it back to yourself. So they've got great applications. But if you're not using any of those features, if you've got your pension pots and you just invest in them in the traditional stocks and shares kind of way, you're probably paying fees just for the sake of having something that you're not going to use. So just stick with something cheap and cheerful and invest it traditionally. I think so. It depends.
Always does. It always does. Raphael's commented on what we've been talking about. Keeping money in business is dangerous for estate planning. A surplus cash in a business eligible for business relief on inheritance tax won't in itself qualify for business relief. Raphael, yeah, I kind of agree and I kind of disagree with that. We've been involved in a lot of liquidations for clients who have been closing down or what have you, what would be perceived as surplus cash. Depending on who the liquidator is, it's really about kind of establishing what's surplus cash. We've never experienced any problems with it in the past, but that's not to say there wouldn't be any problems in the future. And it's certainly worth highlighting, and it's one thing that most liquidators would probably talk to you about. I'd be interested to know, Raphael, if you're still around, what would you perceive to be surplus cash? You know, we've discussed about leaving money in the businesses for runway or for business reversals and what have you. So it'd be interesting to see what you think about that. What would be deemed as surplus cash? I'll be honest with you, I don't know the answer to that, but I'd be interested to see if somebody else has got any input on that.
When you're talking about liquidators, and this is a bit outside of my ballpark, so excuse if I'm being daft here, but are you referring to entrepreneurs relief there?
Aye, well, business relief, aye, which was formerly entrepreneurs relief, but HMRC like to change things.
I'm not sure if Raphael's referring more to what was business property relief, business relief, more so that if you're dead, not the liquidation.
Well, I did mention death, didn't I? I mentioned estates. Could be that.
The fact it says TEP after his name, I'm thinking he's a bit of an estate guy. So that was maybe.
That stands for what does TEP stand for? Like,
it's a member of STEP, I think. I can't remember what the acronym stands for.
Yeah, Trust and Estates Planning. He is. I know Raphael. He's a great chap, and he basically works with private clients to work with them on the wills, trusts, powers of attorney, probate, and IHT planning. So he's a kind of estates planner lawyer.
What's the situation, Will? Because it sounds like he could be a future guest.
Well, he wants to be, actually. We did have a chat about that, and he said he was going to pop in. So I think this is a good opportunity to set something up. We can make a plan for Raphael, if you're still there listening, to come on one session, and we can get some questions focused around that, because I think he could really add some value.
I would say so, right? But he's not got a beard, so we've got issues there. So we need to
well, this is 4 years growth, so I don't think he needs to worry too much.
That situation. I think probably we'll be as well end it a bit sooner than normal. Normal. What's normal? We've only done it once before. The questions have kind of dried up. I suspect. Hang on, just let me check.
We've just had a few people join by the looks of it. Well, I think Len Sharps has just joined. Don't know whether he's got a question. I know I've just seen that Emily, she appears here on LinkedIn user, but on LinkedIn she appears as Emily. She's been here. I don't know whether she's got a question. I don't know whether Ashley's got a question. Sean, if you're still there, do you have a question? Otherwise, perhaps, yeah, we can wrap things up.
What I would say, let's try and keep this positive then, and hope that the reason that there's not been as much engagement as there was last week is because wasn't 2 weeks ago, is that schools are still on holiday, aren't they? So people aren't really want to talk to us. Maybe they're busy on the beach or.
I thought you were just going to say because we'd answered all the questions so fantastically last time.
Success. But what I would say is we now have a LinkedIn channel that all these are now recorded, or they're going to be recorded, and they're all going to be up on the YouTube channel, not the LinkedIn channel, sorry, for you to go and watch at your leisure, or I don't know if that would be at leisure. I don't know. That's maybe doesn't sound right, but you know what I mean. So if you didn't get the questions answered that you have here, or if you've missed it, or you want to go back and replay anything that we've discussed, you've got it on the YouTube channel. I'll put it up in a note, or I'll put a link in the comments on the LinkedIn Live, so that you can go there as soon as you want, or as quickly as you like. So I'm just going to check the feed again. I think Mark's busy checking it as well, just seeing if there's anybody else.
Yeah, I can't see anything. Oh, hold on. Raphael has posted a picture of his beard, so I think we're all sorted on that front now. So there we go. Thanks, Raphael.
I mean, he looks delighted.
Yes, he looks really happy with this. This is brilliant. I mean, everything's lined up now. There's no objection from us at all.
Excellent. Right. Well,
and someone's also said, not in Wales, they're back in school. That's Jules. So just a bit of info there for you, that the kids are back in school in Wales, in case you were wondering.
Not here,
Yeah, exactly. but thanks, Jules. Yeah, rubbing that in. And then I don't think we've got much else. I mean, it's quite hard to monitor this. I'm sure there's a better way to do it, but I've not figured it out. So I can't see anything. I'm going to do one more refresh, and then if not, we may have to wrap up. And I mean, did we have any other questions that were left over from last week that we never got round to, or anything that was submitted after that? I don't think there is.
No, I think we're up to date. But just remember, everybody, that the tax year's changed. So maybe it's time to start thinking about your planning again. If you didn't do anything last year, it's a good time to start thinking about it, and that includes pensions and so on. So and if you're thinking about starting a business, this is a good time to start it. Keep everything nice and tidy. And obviously, Mark will keep you right in your T's and C's and what have you. So next week it will be the same time. We spoke about kind of curtailing it from 45 minutes to 30 minutes, or increasing it from 45 minutes to an hour, just depending on the level of interest. We'll leave it 45 minutes. Let's remain positive on in that respect for one more week. And come on, we need some serious legal questions, because Mark's sitting there. Look at him. He's not had to answer a single question this week.
I'm very pleased with myself, very smug this week, because I
got to answer that question. Just taxed him. So let's get to work for him next week. But,
if anyone might remember, though, Alan, I got hammered in the first one a little bit, so I think it's only fair.
All right.
Have a bit of a break this week.
Maybe next week is you can take the chair, and you can run it rather than me, and I'll just sit, and then maybe the questions will be targeted at me that week, so we'll see how we get on.
Okay. Well, I mean, what I'd say is, if anyone's listening to this or wants to watch it afterwards, we're always happy to receive questions in advance. So if something pops up in your head any point this week, and you think, the blokes with beards might be able to answer this, just fire us a message on LinkedIn, or drop us an email, whatever works for you, and then we'll pull them together, and at least then we'll have something to go off to start with at the next session.
Hang on, we've got this just in. Len Sharp, so you mentioned earlier, Mark, good, great client of mine. One of my huge cheerleaders has asked, "What's the best watch investment, Rolex or Omega?" I don't know. I think that's probably because he's seen that I had an Omega. I think he's just trying to be a bit of a smart arse. I'm assuming he's got a Rolex based on that comment. But
that was your catalogue pose, wasn't it? Oh, is it in the photo? Oh.
I would imagine you guys know that I'm not like that. I hide my light under a bushel. But, Len, I mean, all joking aside, I've got a few clients who are in the watch game, both as dealers, 2 or 3 dealers, and also I've got a few guys who are, I suppose you would call them investors. I think Rolex always seems to increase in value. I don't know. That's about it. But don't take that as advice. Quickly get that disclaimer back up the screen, Mark.
Do you need the disclaimer again, Alan? That's just hammer that home, yeah.
So I think that's us, guys. For 39 minutes in, I think we've done all right. Waffling over. Yeah, we're done.
Yeah, I think that's everything.
Any more? Len says he's got an Amiga. Good taste, mate. Good taste. Right, I think that's us. So if we're good to go, we'll see you next week.
It's been a pleasure. See you next week.
Cheers, everyone.
Roll credits.